it's an illusion. It seems. Are you saying that there are people who see that there is a threat within the U.S. government or something like that? Like they are not just kind of being like, okay, it's not a problem if China, continues to colonize the moon.
Well, what we hear so far from NASA Director Nelson and others is the accusation that China is not transparent about its ambitions on the moon. They will go that far. They will make that accusation. But I think they understand politically that if they publicly accuse the Chinese of preparing for military activities on the moon, then the question is going to come back to them. Okay, Director Nelson, uh, uh, President Biden, what are you doing to defend our people on the moon? And then, kind of, the political campaign to create and defend the principle of peaceful behavior on the moon then collapses. And then we have to spend time and effort to explain to all our partners that we tried but we failed. And if you're afraid of getting caught in the next Cold War on the moon, where it's also very, very cold to begin with, uh, then you can go. We release you. We lose the investment that we've made in defending a regime, a potential regime of peace on the moon. And so I think our space leaders are reluctant to give that up. Now we have a space force. The space force is its mission is to protect Americans and American interests in space, and that includes the moon and beyond. Are they thinking about what the Chinese are doing and their implications? Well, they wouldn't be earning their paychecks if they didn't. So if it's obvious to me, it's very likely it's obvious to them. But they're just not talking about it because of this political problem. If we let the cat out of the bag that no, there's just not going to be any peace on the moon. China is bringing its conflicts on Earth to the moon and beyond, and we have to be prepared to meet this in order to defend ourselves and defend our access and defend our rights and all that. Then it's a downer. Politically, it could be a hard sell. I think not, but it's discordant, and it forces all of the effort that's been invested in trying to create this potential regime of peace on the moon for naught. And they're not yet ready to give that up. But when they are, I expect that the Space Force uh, will have some interesting things to say, and perhaps be proposing some very interesting programs as well.
Well, it seems to me that the best thing the U.S. could do to prevent China's space ambitions is to just make sure they don't take Taiwan, because if they can't take Taiwan, they're not going to take Mars.
Yes, Taiwan is the first battle in China's war, probably decades of wars for global hegemony. If Taiwan remains free, then in a large sense, the bottle or the cork remains in the bottle. Yeah, China's space ambitions can be checked with simple, near, not very difficult moves on Earth. If they start attacking our satellites in space, then, in my opinion, all of China's space launch centers will immediately become open game. Uh, the Wenchang Center is right on the coast of Hainan Island. Uh, no big deal to approach and destroy without killing a lot of people. The space launch sites inside China are kind of in the center of China, so it'll take more effort. The political price will be a little higher, but yeah, the Chinese will be attacking our space launch and control centers on Earth as well. So yeah, it'll be nasty. A Taiwan war will instantly become a war for control of low Earth orbit, and all space launch and control centers, including the Strategic Support Forces Space Control Base in Argentina and the one they want to build in Antarctica. If the one in Antarctica is built, I think we'll be attacking that as well. Again, another regime of peace, the Antarctic Treaty, will come tumbling down.
Which the CCP has already been exploiting that. But so it sounds like from what you're saying that if a war for Taiwan goes hot, that already will bring in space, low Earth orbit, and basically at that point the genie's out of the bottle, and then space is very clearly a new battleground for war.
Most definitely, and we're kind of fooling ourselves in the meantime. We should be preparing in every way that we can afford for this new theater of conflict, real conflict, and because it's going to be upon us as soon as the Taiwan War starts. And yeah, we're going to need the means to take out Chinese satellites just as soon as they're taking out our satellites. And we have the means to attack the Chinese global Earth-based space tracking and control network, and we're going to have to do that within the first moments of the war. If they can't control their satellites, then they can't benefit from them, and that will help us to terminate the war on the Taiwan Strait in a far more rapid manner, lose with much less loss of life.
And I think this is why this conversation is so important, because to me, I think when people hear about, China taking over Mars or meeting aliens, that all sounds like very far-fetched or far into the future. It's like it's become sci-fi. But when you talk about if they invade Taiwan, immediately space is involved. It becomes much more of a present danger.
Absolutely. We simply need to be prepared for this fight. I hope that we have taken some measures, and that we don't talk about them is completely justified at this stage in sort of space politics. But that stage it will evaporate as soon as the Taiwan War begins.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. That was a fascinating interview. I felt, I love space stuff. But don't you think the real danger is that if war breaks out in space, the governments of the world will no longer be able to hide the fact that the Earth is a flat disk?
Well, most of the space station concepts that we've seen are flat disks, so perhaps somebody's world will be flat. Not ours per se, but somebody's.
Well, at least China can flatten the moon with its bombs. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, and if anyone wanted to see more of your work, where can they follow you?
I'm a columnist for the Taipei Times. I've written extensively for Epoch Times. That's where I'm publishing recently.